Whatever happened to the missing boys in Caledon? Eric Lars Folk, 14 years old, and John McCormick Jr., 15 years old, went missing August 24th, 1981. They were last to be known of driving a car on the McCormick's farm. Eric and his family just moved to Caledon, Ontario from Fort Erie, Ontario. They had just relocated to a farmhouse on Horseshoe Hill Road. It had a view of fields and rolling hills. Eric was quickly acquainted with the neighbor Kim McCormick, John Jr.'s sister. She was 13 years old, and it was rumored that Eric had a crush on her. Eric just got a new bike, and he rode the bike frequently. He often visited Kim. Eric's older brother Dave said John Jr. and Eric's personalities didn't mesh well. Dave was 2 years older than John Jr., but got along with him better than Eric did. John Jr. spent most of that summer away because him and his father would get into explosive arguments. His father's name is John Sr. The fight resulted in John Jr.'s arm being broken. John Jr. was sent away to stay at a relative's house in Virginia while he was recovering. John Jr. would return to Caledon on August 14th, a few weeks after Eric and Dave moved to town. Within the first 10 days of John Jr. being home, Dave and John Jr. hung out. Dave remembers stealing beer from John Sr.'s mini fridge. Dave remembers driving a black Chevy Field car with John Jr., and he vividly remembers John Sr. standing on the balcony yelling at John, and remembers how John Jr. flipped off his dad, John Sr. Before the night the boys vanished, Eric and John Jr. never hung out alone together before. On the night they went missing, Eric biked to see Kim. He had just finished having supper with his father, and his father had no idea this would be the last time he is seeing his son. When Eric went to see Kim, he quickly found out that Kim was babysitting for a neighbor up the road. According to Dwayne, a friend of John Jr., they were out late in a town near Orangeville the night before John Jr. disappeared. Dwayne said John Jr. got in trouble for not doing chores, so Dwayne wasn't allowed over to the McCormicks on the night they went missing, August 24th, 1981. John Jr. came to the Lar folks looking for Dave that night, but Dave was visiting friends in Fort Erie, the place they had just moved from. So with Kim, Dwayne, and John being gone or not allowed to hang out, Eric and John Jr. decided to hang out because who else was there for them to hang out with? Dave was having so much fun up in Fort Erie, he decided to stay an extra night. He never thought when he returned home he would be looking for his younger brother and his new friend John Jr. John Sr. had a reputation as a paranoid alcoholic who loved guns and had a frequent visit from the police officers. He kept his mini fridge beside his bed and drank morning till dawn. Around 11 p.m. on the night they went missing, Joy McCormick, who is John Jr.'s mom, was banging on the Lars folks' door, informing them that the two boys were missing. There was no trace of the boys anywhere. The only clue they had was John Jr.'s beat-up black Chevy farm car. When Dave came back from Fort Erie, he went to the McCormick's farm. Dave immediately notices the car. Dave notices the Chevy is out of place from the rest of the cars. John Jr. took pride in his cars. He owned 6 or 8, which John Jr. would keep them parked nicely. It was no mystery to Dave why this car was out of place, considering Dave is the one who taught John Jr. how to start it without a key. It was a 2-person job to get this Chevy farm car to start, and Dave realized what they were doing. He noticed the wires sitting on the passenger seat. Investigators dismissed the boys as runaways, suggesting that Eric and John Jr. went to an exhibit in Toronto, but the Larfolk family says they have no idea where that came from. Neither of the boys had a change of clothes. Eric's new backpack was found in his closet. John Jr.'s wallet was found on top of his dresser. The Larfolks believe that deep in their souls that Eric did not run away. Eric never had a history of hitchhiking. They truly believe Eric did not run away. The Lars folk didn't have a phone, so there would have been no number for Eric to call if he ever tried to get in touch with them. The OPP conducted a 6-hour search in the woods, swamp, and gravel pits. The McCormicks refused to speak to the reporters. Those close to the case described the family's unwillingness to raise alarm about the missing boys, considering one of them is their own son, was noted by the OPP. That was briefly mentioned in the Toronto Star on October 29, 1981. Lloyd Lars Folk, Eric's father, shared his vivid memories of the night the boys went missing in 1981. Lloyd remembers crawling through the dirt in heavy blackness looking for broken branches that could have lined up to the gravel pit. Lloyd, who is much consumed by panic with the thought in his head that someone carried his son into the dense forest on the McCormick's 100-acre property. Lloyd remembers John Sr. sitting in his house drinking a beer. Apparently, John Sr. had a friend over. His name is George. John Sr. stated that the boys may have stowed away in his friend's pickup truck and that the friend was heading out west. When I was looking up this case, this is what I found about the friend George. George was a mechanic and frequently guested McCormick's farm. He drove a white truck and lived on Hockley Road in 1981. He was in his late 20s. He died of lung and throat cancer in March 2000 following a publicized animal cruelty trial near Port Hope. His whereabouts was unknown between 1981 and 1999. John Sr.'s comment was the most significant contribution to the search, but it was called off by the police shortly after midnight. A decade after the journalist Livingstone wrote the article, he is still consumed with gaps and red flags he may have overlooked. Livingston claims that he would really like to solve this case before Lloyd, Eric's father, passes away. Time is sentimental, and Livingston often wonders if he let his own bias get in the way. Lloyd is 92 as of 2023. John Sr. and Joyce McCormick separated in 1986. Joyce remarried a neighbor named John Nelson. Kim sold the McCormick farm in 1991. Both Kim and Joyce moved away shortly after. John McCormick Sr. died of cirrhosis on the liver on October 15, 1987. Beverly Lars Folk, Eric's mom, passed away in May 2000 from breast cancer. Lloyd Lars Folk moved to a basement apartment in Brampton, Ontario, 20 minutes away from Caledon, Ontario. Lloyd has been repeatedly seen back at the McCormick's farm by the new owners. He was looking for any sign of his son Eric. Throughout the years, Lloyd also worked with Child Find to keep Eric's photo circulating in the newspapers. Lloyd was last seen in 2020 on a cold, wet day in October looking for his son. The Livingston Reporter had a recent discussion with Dave, Eric's older brother. It made Livingstone reconsider a narrative that John Sr. lost his temper with John Jr. and both boys were killed as a result. A former Shelburne police officer says he often thinks about the missing Caledon boys. A quote from the officer: "Where the bodies are, I haven't got a clue. If I did, I'd be helping them find them. The longer these people are missing, the harder it is to find them." John and Joyce McCormick packed up John Jr.'s room the first week he was missing. "It's almost like they knew their son wasn't coming back," says Livingstone. Sometime after that, a headstone was made. John Jr.'s immediate family refused to talk to the media or cooperate with the Lars folk. It's been 30 years since these boys went missing. If you know anything about Eric Lars folk or John McCormick Jr., email canadaunsolved.contact@gmail.com.